welcome. I'm Hina Gambhir. Those were the headlines at this hour. The big focus, viewers, that we have for you this morning is a peace agreement between U.S. and Iran. After 108 days, the missiles over the skies of West Asia may be falling silent, but the diplomatic battle is only beginning. Hours before the G7 summit takes center stage, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a U.S.-Iran breakthrough in the war. This deal will now lead to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. It will ease pressure on the global economy and reset the balance of power in West Asia. Let's also remember that this is coming on the sidelines of the crucial G7 summit in France, where global powers are converging, including India. This deal and its implications are sure to be on the agenda of the summit. Let's first bring you a ground report on this by our managing editor, Zaka Jacob, before we tell you more about this peace agreement.
After 108 days, the war between Iran and America finally seems to be over. Donald Trump has announced this on Truth Social, that finally the war is over and the Strait of Hormuz will remain open. Of course, the 14-point agreement has to be passed for its details. It seems to be heavily favored in Iran's direction, primarily because there are no commitments from Iran's side as far as the nuclear question is concerned. The only clause that says that Iran will not develop a nuclear weapon as per its NPT commitments. It does not mention anything about stopping further enrichment. It does not mention anything about handing over the nuclear fissile material, about 400 kilograms of that fissile material, either to America or to the IAEA. It does not mention anything about further IAEA inspections or the dismantling of the nuclear infrastructure. On the Strait of Hormuz, which was the most important concern for the entire world, including for India, because oil prices had gone up, Indian ships were getting attacked. There are about 13 Indian ships that are still stuck there in the Strait of Hormuz. Just in this past week, we've seen the 3 Indian sailors who died because of American naval action against them. It had led to a bit of a bad blood between Washington and Delhi. All of those concerns will get addressed. Prime Minister Modi will arrive here in Evian on Tuesday, and on Wednesday afternoon, he will meet with President Donald Trump of the United States, where some of these issues will come up for their discussion. This will be the first meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi since February 2025, when Prime Minister Modi went to the White House. Thereafter, there have been some very big bumps in the relationship between India and the United States, whether it's on the tariff issue, whether it's on the interim trade agreement. We still haven't arrived at an interim trade agreement. What will be the tariff percentage? Will it be 18%? Will it be 10%? Will any of this have legal bearing? Because the U.S. Supreme Court has struck down the rationale, the legal rationale by which the Trump administration was tariffing countries. And of course, like I said, the most recent issue of the sailors, the Indian sailors being killed. All of this will be discussed when the two leaders meet. It's going to be a power-packed week of diplomacy and action here in Evian on the foothills of the French Alps.
And viewers, we have some breaking inputs coming in because it is a developing story, and now what we have for you is a statement by Iran's Supreme National Security Council. Based on the agreement, the war and military operations on all fronts, including Lebanon, will end immediately and permanently starting tonight. And in addition, the naval blockade against Iran will end immediately and completely. Let me go across to my colleague Mayank, who is joining us live right now for more on this. Mayank, now this is a crucial statement that has come from Iran Supreme National Security Council, but I want to understand from you here. Clearly, they are saying that military operations across all fronts are going to end, including Lebanon. But what about Israel? The Israel factor in this agreement, where does that factor in? And, have we got any reaction from Israel on this aspect that's being raised by Iran?
The most important point is actually the way they have used future tenses in that will end, and that depends on the way the things will move forward on Friday. And it is whatever it is as of now is memorandum of understanding, the points which have been thrashed out between Qatar and between Iran. Now coming back to one most important point which you have pointed to is actually Israel and Lebanon in this case. before I come to specifically that point, I need to bring out that Iran was even ready to forego its ceasefire agreement right from the beginning as far as Lebanon is concerned, on the issue of Lebanon. And on the other side, Israel was always clear. They had been continuing with military operations on southern Lebanon every time to the extent that while even President Donald Trump was having a sort of a disagreement on that, he continued with the operations, and even when Donald Trump did not wish that it takes place. So here things are in a way bind actually, unless things get clear, because now what the reports have come out is President Benjamin Netanyahu is also supposed to meet President Donald Trump, and that cannot be anything other than Lebanon in this case.
Absolutely.
So we'll have to wait and watch for that, because as I started by saying that there's a future, it is dependent on the agreements which will take place on Friday in Switzerland. Hina?
Right. Mayank, stay on with us. Let's also tell our viewers a little bit about this agreement that's there on the peace deal. Now, viewers, there are two versions. Trump says peace deal is complete. Tehran says it is only a memorandum of understanding for now. Trump says peace has been achieved. Tehran says talks start after U.S. acts. Washington claims big breakthrough. Tehran wants commitments first. So these are some of the aspects that one can't really ignore. And peace deal or peace framework is something, that we will get more clarity on maybe in the next few days. And once we actually see the agreement being signed on Friday as being claimed right now. Now, viewers, then there is the Israel factor that we were specifically talking about. Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu's government was not a party to the U.S. Iran negotiations. Israel has yet to formally endorse the framework. From Israel's perspective, key concerns remain Iran's nuclear program, its missile capabilities, and its support for proxy groups such as the Hezbollah. Lebanon could actually emerge as the biggest test of the agreement. Any lasting peace will require both the restraint of Hezbollah and Israeli acceptance of the new diplomatic reality. And viewers, this is the very, very important aspect as far as the peace agreement is concerned. The peace agreement has been signed, is going to be signed, but Tel Aviv, it seems, is not part of the negotiations. Does Bibi endorse the peace deal is the big question. Beirut strikes test peace push, and Hezbollah front still active. Now, these are some of the aspects that we will be focusing on, and let me go across to my colleague Srinjoy Chaudhary for more on this. Srinjoy, the point really is, will Israel accept whatever is being decided between U.S. and Iran, and will there be no action against Hezbollah in Lebanon by Israel?
That's the whole point. First of all, the Hezbollah is probably, or was, till the fighting began all over again, was probably stronger than many armies of the world. It had a well-trained force, a disciplined force, a motivated force, and lots of rockets and drones that was supplied by the Iranians. Now the Hezbollah was constantly targeting northern Israel. Now if you target northern Israel, then naturally Israel will hit back, and they hit large parts of southern Lebanon. As a result, the Hezbollah, particularly the leaders, moved northwards towards Beirut. Now, then began the bombing of Beirut. Now that, of course, led to huge problems, and President Trump was also unimpressed by the whole thing. So, Hezbollah, Lebanon, the peace there, those issues are also part of this peace plan. How will Israel look at it? Will Netanyahu try to change Donald Trump's mind? They have till Friday to do something like that. Now, we don't know with the president. He's a kind of man who thinks of different things at different times. Now, how this will turn out, we don't know. But we'll have to wait for Friday to find out whether it's on that peaceful plan or not.
Absolutely. But, interestingly, at least for the first time since the war started, both sides have agreed to a memorandum of understanding. And that's clearly being seen as a positive signal as far as the Middle East crisis is concerned. Srinjoy, stay on with us.